Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Paranormal Saloon. I'm your host, Jay Hill. We have a fantastic show tonight. Actually, she's a very good friend of mine. I've known her for some years. And we used to do some mediumship lives a couple years ago. And it was a good time. We talked a lot about mediumship and other things, but it's been a while since I been in contact with her, and recently we kind of reconnected a little bit more on Facebook, and I decided to have her on the show because she's such a pleasure to talk to, and like I said, she's a good friend, and um, she is a she's a psychic medium, and she's also a military person. I mean, she was in the military. I mean, but she's still civilian military. Um, so I am actually probably going to tap her brain a little bit on some of the paranormal happenings in the military, which should be interesting to see. But before I get her on here, I just want to let everybody know you can find me anywhere from Instagram to Facebook to TikTok. You can also find us on Rumble. This episode will be on Rumble. And then I will upload the audio file to all the places that you get your podcasts: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, etc., etc. I also, one of my favorite apps that I use is Good Pods, and there's over 1 million users on there. Yeah, it's a great app for finding your podcast. It's very simple and easy to navigate. So yeah, you could find Studio Six Media Productions there. All of my shows, the Paranormal Triangle, Paranormal Saloon, and my other one, um, what's the other? Oh, Paranormal Memoirs, which I recently came up with some new memories that I forgot about, stories that I want to tell, and yeah, you can find that all under Studio Six Media Productions wherever you get your podcasts. And there's a couple other different shows on there. I also have episodes from other people that I'm a guest on. Three Haunted. I just recently uploaded that interview. That was a really fun interview. Um, so yeah, so check that out. And I think that's about it. So without further ado, let's get this wonderful lady on. Good
Hi,
evening,
good evening.
Elizabeth.
So good to see you, Jay.
It's good to see you. Elizabeth Marroquin. I love that last name. I just think that is a really cool name. So, yeah. So, how have you been?
Oh man, it's been definitely been a ride. Lots of stuff has happened in the last couple years since we actually had a really
Hmm.
good long conversation.
Right, right. Yeah. So, I've been really busy with other projects and this and that. But when I came up with the Paranormal Saloon and decided to kind of go all in on it, and I had seen that you liked one of my things on Facebook, and I was like, God, I haven't talked to her forever, and I really need to connect with her. And so that's why I sent you that message today and said, look, be on the show tonight. And you
Yeah.
agreed. So usually people like to kind of take a moment and try to figure out what their schedule's like. But I'm glad that you were able to accept my invite, and I thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Yes, indeed. And gosh, I mean, it's just this year's already in the first couple months. It's just been going by really fast. A lot of
Yeah.
crazy things in the world going on, which is fine. But we don't really have to talk about that. But if you want to let some of these people that are listening know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So as you said, my name is Elizabeth. I was in the military for about 25 and a half years. While I was in the military, I guess you could say that's when I really had my awakening. Even though I'd been doing gifted type things since I was little and just not really paying attention to it. Really being in the military and and being around the people and then being able to be introduced to the paranormal field, I started to do more practicing of my mediumship. And now I am retired, but I am a government civilian working on a military installation, and I live on a military installation. So I'm very, very blessed to be able to serve my country at the same time as being able to be in the paranormal field and use my gifts.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Yeah, I can only imagine. You know, when we were talking before the show, I kind of talked a little bit about the paranormal and aspects in the military, and that's something that has really fascinated me. Is the because of the military and all the with the wars and you know all that emotion, all that I don't know how to describe it, but that angst and this and that. I mean, have you personally experienced some things on base or even when you've been out in the field? I mean, have you always been stateside or did you actually go overseas?
So I've been overseas. I've been to Turkey, been to Italy, to Germany. I think the longest duration I was in Germany, stationed in at Pulaski Barracks,
Hmm.
and of course been throughout that area. So there's Ramstein and all of the Grafenwehr and all of the different places out there where there's a lot of stuff that happens out there.
Hmm. Have you experienced anything being abroad?
Oh yes, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to tell my listeners? Something that you found that was fascinating or weird or?
So when we were in Germany, there were a lot of people who were saying that they would see like soldiers walking through these empty barracks. And I say empty because a soldier would come and they would say, "Oh, hey, I saw somebody or I saw a face that was in that operating room." And we would
Hmm.
walk back into this it's a hospital, but it's one of those ones that people actually set up. And so when we would walk back there and there'd be no one there and there was no way to get out of it, but we had
Hmm.
multiple people that swore that they saw someone back there or multiple people back there.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, you would hear just the same like voices and just different languages. So speaking in a different language when there's nothing but Americans there.
Right, right. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah. Scary if you're not used to it. I mean, I would just say, "Oh yeah, just listen to them. It's okay. They're
Right.
not doing anything."
So,
Yeah.
not to cut you off about your story about Germany,
Mhm.
um, but you live on base.
Yes.
Okay. The building or the housing or that you live in now,
Mhm.
you have activity there, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I just had some static come through, and it wasn't from you because it was on your microphone, and you're not touching your microphone, and I don't have static because my microphone is right in front of me. Um, and I kind of got this whole you have company,
Always. Yeah.
right, right. And I see there's got to be there's a male there. Now, is that true? Is there a male there
Oh,
that
yeah.
you know of? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not wrong in saying that. But yeah, so evidently when you were telling your story, it's almost like somebody kind of wanted to butt in.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So but that's the cool thing about doing a paranormal podcast and this and that, especially when somebody's living in a place that has paranormal activity. And I
Mhm.
knew from just sitting there talking to you even before the show, I'm like, you there's some energy around you, there's some energy in that. And that's why I was like, okay, I've got to address this because
Yeah.
you've got a male there. And yeah, he was military. And yeah, is there something that you want to talk about? I mean, is there something that you've experienced in that home?
I think in this home, the biggest thing right now.
Yep, see? That he totally cut you off.
No, talk
Right. Okay. Okay.
about
Okay, so you could stop doing that now, please. Are you there?
Is he there? Are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he's messing with the microphone.
Yeah, he's having fun, I'm sure.
Right.
Gets to be front and center.
Yes. Yes. So when you were see folks, I mean, if you when you're listening to my shows, I mean, I've had experiences in other locations where I've done my first podcast in a haunted hotel, and we had some experiences happen on live
Oh, I remember those.
podcasts. Yes,
Yeah.
and it was great. I mean, we had interactions and this and that. So yeah, it was really cool. But this is just indicative of what we do. And this yeah, the gentleman is I don't want to say that it's not that he's not happy, but it's just kind of
Mhm.
like, don't talk about me, or
Mhm.
you know what I mean, or something like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
um so let's see, let's try it one more time. So give me a synopsis of this
Uh,
gentleman.
so dreams, there's a lot of dreams that occur, especially from the kids. The girls dream a lot more than I do.
Hmm.
I've seen lights, so the cats love this entity or this spirit.
Hmm.
There's one that specifically will I feel like he finds him, like, every evening and just starts yelling at him.
Right, right,
So you'll hear him and we're like, "Pip, stop staring at the wall or stop crying at the
right,
wall." Yeah.
right, right. Right. So yeah, so I could tell that energy was there. You know what I mean? So that I had to address it, and not to say anything bad about the spirit that's there. That's fine. But for him to be able to manipulate your microphone like that, which is probably what he's doing, is just taking his hand and going over or his energy is around it to where it's creating that static. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Which is fine. Okay, so back to the Germany story. Um, Anything else in particular that you'd like to talk about Germany, or even any other location that you visited when you were on duty?
So the really g whenever we were there, we got to travel a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was really neat to go to places, and when we went to places, it was clear that there were spirits that were there. There were
Mm-hmm.
some that were soldiers, there were some that were, like, royalty or in castles, and you
Mm-hmm.
just start to walk because the history is so rich
Right.
that
Right.
as you're walking around and you just know and the the things that you're like, why are my cupboards opening and closing, or what was that noise, and go
Mm-hmm.
check and it's not the house settling, or
Right.
we had a spirit that was in my home when we were living in Germany, and so I didn't live on base, but this spirit was clearly there. My
Mm-hmm.
daughter saw a hand come out of her closet.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, it was just and she was, "Mom, there was a hand," and she just, "I'm not making it up," and she's not
Right.
one to make up
Right. Right.
stories, and she said she never saw it again, but, I mean, you're just like, "Hey, they're here, and
Right. Right. Right.
they're not hurting anyone. If anything, they're watching us, and
Right.
making sure that we're okay."
Right.
So,
And that's the percentage of that is probably more like 75%. You know what I mean? Is more of the watching and just observing and this and that. There's still, a lot of them are probably just, still going about their own business and doing their own thing, but noticing you in that sense too.
yeah.
So um yeah, and the other thing too, when people see, people like see, full body apparitions, or even a hand or something like that.
Mhm.
A lot of the times, I don't think the spirit actually realizes that they're doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like a afterthought, like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I
Oops.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I've kind of seen that too. So, so continue talk about other places.
Yeah. So we had when I was at Fort Sam, this actually, now it's called Joint Base San Antonio.
Hmm.
This is actually really cool, and if you can find or give me an explanation, would love one. If
Mhm.
anyone wants to message later and be like, "Hey, I can explain this," then please do.
Mhm.
So when I was an instructor at the schoolhouse, and I love this is probably one of my favorite positions, my favorite jobs that I ever had. But
Mhm.
there was a room that was for the instructors, and we would go in there to prepare our next lessons. And the only thing that was in this room, there was a bookshelf that was it was bolted to the wall, and the books that were in it were super super heavy. Well, one day we were in there. There were three of us that were in there, and this book just comes out of the shelf and
Hmm.
falls down to the ground.
Hmm.
So, of course, I'm skeptical. Even I may be a psychic medium, but I will try to find ways to make this
Right.
reoccur.
Right.
So I pick up the book and I say, "Hey guys, did you guys was this pushed all the way back? Was it sitting out? Like what is, what was the reason?" And they, "Oh, no, no, it's nothing is wrong with this. It was all the way back." So I said, "Okay, well, let me put it back." One of the instructors got up and walked out, and another one came in, and it did it again.
Hmm.
And so I said, What? Like, this is so I, okay, let me see if I can recreate this." So I started like trying to make the bookshelf move. The bookshelf
Mhm.
wouldn't move. This was a really thick 1,000-page book. This was not
Oh,
something that,
wow.
yeah, this wasn't like a little pamphlet. It was pushed all the way up against the rest of the books. I had someone go into the room that was adjacent and bang on the wall and try to make things move.
Mhm.
It wouldn't move. So I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know why this is doing this." So put it back in the bookshelf. One of the instructors, the opposite one, got up and left, and then someone else came in, sat down, start typing again, and it did it again,
3 times.
three
Wow.
times. So I tell the instructor, the other, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like you guys saw this, right?" And the one instructor said, "Yes, I actually saw it look like it got pulled out of the shelf and dropped." So he picks up the book and he's flipping through it looking for any kind of writing. There's no writing in this book. There are some purple sticky notes, but
Mhm.
that's it. And then never happened again. Could never figure out, like, no way to recreate this situation. The students were all just like, "We don't know what's going on." Yeah, so were afraid to come into the office unless I was in there. So,
Right, right.
yeah, it was just, "This is weird." Yeah,
Right,
but
right.
all
So
the
what
time.
what was the book?
It was a veterinary technician compendium, like how to be a veterinary technician. So you could go in and like just study, how to draw blood or whatever.
Right.
And there were multiple copies on the shelf. So,
Huh.
and this one didn't have a name in it because I was like, well, maybe it belonged to someone, or,
Right.
maybe someone's trying to send a message and we're flipping through
Right.
it thinking maybe there's a sticky note or something.
Mhm.
Nothing. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. That's
So it's just,
crazy.
yeah, I mean, that was that was just one. I mean, we had multiple things because when you walk into the back area, it was all full of tile, and you would hear a woman that was talking, like, screaming for help.
Oh.
Um, we got out, like the old like the phone apps, and I don't know how much stock people put in them,
Mhm.
uh, but whenever we heard it, we took out this our I was like, "Let me get out my phone and let me just see," and it was like, "Murder, help me," was giving me a name, and of course, the soldiers were in there going, "What?" And I was like,
Right.
"Well, I mean, it's okay. I wish I could help this individual, but you have to
Right.
remember this base is super old.
Right.
The area is super old. There was a cemetery, like this massive cemetery that wasn't that far from where we were.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's multiple things that it could have been some spirit just wandering by or saw the light because we had quite a few gifted people that were in that
Right.
class.
Right,
So
right.
they could have just walked through and wanted attention.
Now, let me ask you a question real quick. Talk about gifted people that were in your class.
Mhm.
Do you think that um, there are a lot of gifted people in the military,
I
and
do.
they don't realize it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So even where I'm working now, when I was, active duty there, there would be times that I would be sitting down and watching, and you know how when someone is gifted, but they don't want people to know,
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
and because we're gifted, we know, like, we can look at people and be like, "Alright."
I mediums, no mediums. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So this kid, and he really was, to me, he was a kid because 'cause they're all kids to me right now,
Right.
but this kid is sitting there watching somebody, and just there's not, like, to the physical eye, there's no one there, but
Mhm.
I'm watching him going, he
Yeah.
he's seeing somebody.
Right.
And so the soldiers had asked me about it. I forget how it came up. I think we were talking about just paranormal stuff in general. It seemed to be a hot topic at the time.
Mhm.
Uh, and so the soldier looks at me and he says, "Uh, can you tell if if I'm gifted? Because you say you can tell." And I started laughing. And he's like, "What's so funny?" And I said, "Dude, you see spirits." And he just kind of, "How'd you know?" And I said, "You're watching one right now. I don't know how you're asking me." And
Right. Right.
and he was like, "Oh." So he's like,
Right.
"Busted." Yeah, but
Right.
all the
Right.
time, empaths, like,
Mhm.
so many, and just I've had, a couple that, they had premonition dreams,
Mhm.
and I just said, Why don't you say something when you have these dreams?" "Oh, well, I think people will think I'm crazy." Uh, we had one that was, he actually had a long line of intuitives. His grandmother was just known for her, being a medium and being a tarot reader, and he just looked at me and he's like, "How did you know?" And I just told him, I was like, "We recognize each other. It's just
Mhm.
something that just happens."
Mhm.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
totally just there are so many, some that don't realize it, some that realize it but are afraid to say something.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're afraid of the repercussions of what may happen if somebody does think that they're gifted or they're medium or they're empath or something, or they possess those gifts,
Yeah.
because it's kind of I've always said, it's like coming out of the proverbial closet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, it's something that they are, afraid of. Nowadays, I think it's becoming a little bit more widespread, welcomed, but
Yeah.
it's still kind of a stigmata thing. It's kind of a still yeah, we don't really talk about that too much, or or whatnot. But it's kind of like you surround yourself with those type of people. I mean, it's and that you get that acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but so when you were talking about your trips into overseas and your experiences, now you also had instances when you're here, or when
Mhm.
you're in the United States. Is there
Mhm.
some place that you have been an active duty on, that you were at a base or someplace that really kind of left you with a mark, so to speak?
Um, so I think just everywhere I've been, I think it's one of those things that where when you're awake to it and you're
Hmm.
paying attention to it, that you notice more. A lot, I think, happened in San Antonio because I was paying more attention and then growing more
Hmm.
with it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, Meeting more people and then helping more people as well.
Hmm.
There was a woman that an amazing, amazing person, and she's so very gifted. I think she, because she works in like a civilian sector, she doesn't use her gifts as much as she can.
Hmm.
But a physical medium, like,
Hmm.
she made the mistake one time of saying, "Show me how you died." And, uh, and so instead of, because she's a physical medium.
That had to suck.
Yeah, so she was a physical medium and did not realize that she was a physical medium, and till the person made her feel like she was on fire and her skin was turning inside out.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
person died in a fire,
Mhm.
impaled.
Oh,
So,
no.
yeah, so her daughter called me freaking out, and what do I do? Her daughter was an adult, so it wasn't
Mhm.
like a, little baby calling me
Right,
saying,
right, right, right.
"Come over and help my mom, and please, please, please." So I'm driving down the street to go help her, and I don't even know, like, whether this was a coincidence, but you know how sometimes during streetlights, if they have, like, motion sensors, the lights will turn on?
Mhm.
As I'm driving down the street, the lights were turning off,
Oh.
and I got to her house, and when I looked at her, it wasn't her,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I was looking at her, and her eyes were a different color, and I said her name, and I said, "Come back." Like, telling
Right.
the spirit, "You're not allowed to be here. You do not have permission to be here." And that's when she told me, "Well, I asked them to show me how they died because there were so many questions." And I just said, "Okay, from now on."
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah,
No, no,
don't
no.
do that.
Right.
Yeah,
So any physical mediums out there, that should be probably the first rule, that they know not to do that unless they're able to handle doing that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And there may be
yeah,
some physical mediums that can actually do that out there. If you're hearing this or listening, then kudos to you. But I would never. I I couldn't. That's just that's a hard pass for me.
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
um, Psychic medium. That's pretty much where I'm at. I'm not physical medium. There are some aspects of that I've experienced. Um, but not to that level. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, I might get a feeling, or something that that coincides with the person, the spirit that's there. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But it's not what you described.
yeah, it's
That
so
would
it can be
be
scary.
horrific. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you
Um.
don't realize that it's your gift, and then all of a sudden
Right.
you're just, what is this excruciating pain? It's kinda like
Right.
when a physical medium walks into just a building
Hmm.
and you can't figure out, "Why does my head hurt so bad and it feels like
Right.
I'm being stabbed," or,
Right.
yeah,
That is part of that. I have some of that where I can walk into a building and know and kind of feel that. You know what I mean? Not to that
mm,
extreme, but that's more the empathic or the emotional frequency
yeah,
is what I can sense, and I'm more about frequency, and I try to align myself with the frequency that is around me, so that I don't, um, so it doesn't throw me off. You know what I
right.
mean? I've walked into some buildings that make me feel like you literally feel beside yourself,
Yeah,
and I could never understand what the heck that meant.
yeah,
And I would, when I was growing up, and I was, in my 20s, and even when I was younger, but mainly in my 20s, when I was not, I was, diving into things that I shouldn't have been, and I was going places I shouldn't have been, and and just making bad choices. But there was certain places that I would go. Like, I was dating a girl, and we went to her sister's house, and I'll never forget it. I walked in there, and it was like part of me stood right next to me and stood there,
mhm.
and I was like, "What?" And I had experienced it before when I was younger, this and that. But this time was so intense, I could actually feel somebody standing next to me, which was me.
Yeah,
Like, I separated myself, my spiritual self, and my physical. I was right there, and that's when the spiritual side of me. It's almost like I felt everything that was negative or traumatic that happened in that house
yeah.
shook me to my core. I mean, I almost lost my balance. I mean, that's how much of
S
a wave it hit me.
Do you feel like
Um,
it was you trying to escape, or like, the feelings?
um, I'm not sure why. I think that was part of. I don't know. I really can't answer that, because I
Yeah,
have not felt that way even after I, you know, started later in life, when I really started, taking care of myself and stopped doing the drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, and started following my gifts and this and that, I have yet to experience that side by side feeling.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was a protection thing from spirit, but basically protecting me or shielding me, or that I had a lot of frequency coming in at me at once,
Yeah.
and I kind of had to, like, somebody like pulled me out and said, "Okay, put me back in." It was just really bizarre. I don't know. So if anybody knows what I'm talking about, where you walk in, where people say, I stood there and I felt beside myself. That's a real thing. And
Mhm.
it's not just a saying. So if anybody's listening and wants to send me a message or an email, my the email is on my bio, where you can get your podcast. It's underneath the description. Send me an email and let me know you know what that is about, because I still to this day don't understand that.
Mhm.
Um, so back to Elizabeth. After I was kind of rambling, sorry.
I loved it. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah.
no, um, so I want to try to um, implement this. Let me go back. Sometimes my brain likes to get twisted when I'm trying to ask a question. Then my brain's like, "What about this? What about this?" And it's okay. So I gotta take a breath. Okay, okay. Paranormal and the military.
Mhm.
Do you think it is more prevalent now than it ever was?
No, but I
No.
do no, but I think by more prevalent, I think that people are recognizing it more, but I think it's
Okay.
always been there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I would say no, but at the same time, yes, because of the fact that people are really paying more attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, with starting out with all of the paranormal shows and it becoming normalized instead of something that you don't talk about,
Mm-hmm.
more intuitives feeling like they can speak about what they're seeing or what they're feeling. I think that as far as I don't think I know it's like the third time I've said it. I don't think that it's new. I just think that people are recognizing it and not as
Okay.
afraid to say something.
It's always been there.
Yeah.
Okay. So that another question then. So the paranormal and the military, like I said, I asked you if you think it's more prevalent, but have you noticed have you noticed more? Let me go back. See, that's what happens. My brain gets overloaded, and I can't even ask a simple question. So, let me try a different avenue. Okay, so have you been on an investigation where you've actually ran into another person, a spirit who has been in the military, besides like the one you're
Yes.
living with?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, do they recognize you as such?
Yes.
And is that pretty cool? Or
Yeah.
okay,
So,
okay.
I think part of what it is they recognize the respect and the customs and courtesies
Mm-hmm.
in how an individual talks.
Okay.
Specifically, the Maryland Inn,
Mm-hmm.
there is an officer that is there that he doesn't particularly like, he really dislikes women,
Mm-hmm.
but because before I walked into his space,
Mm-hmm.
I saluted and
Mm-hmm.
I asked for permission to enter, he didn't do anything to me like he was doing to most of the other women that were there.
Really?
So it's just I
Hmm.
really think that and I've been to multiple places because there's multiple, like, sailors and whatnot that are there.
Mm-hmm.
I had one that made me feel the emotions of just utter rage,
Okay.
and I don't think that had they not recognized that I was in the military, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they would have even tried to give me those emotions
Mm-hmm.
or to put those emotions on me because they knew I was capable of
Right. Right.
doing something versus being the, "Oh,
Right.
hey, I'm mad at you,
Right.
grr." I was
Right.
yeah,
I
I
like
was
that, girl.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I was so I scared the people that were in there that
Yeah.
they left.
Oh wow.
They're like, "Oh, we," and I, because I told him, I said, "I'm going to leave before I hurt someone," and I got up
Right.
and I walked out,
Right.
and then when I came back a couple minutes later after doing a round of trying to
Uh
figure
huh.
out why is this affecting me so much,
Right.
the lights were on and they were packing up.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you, being, using your gifts and being a psychic medium, I say you do. I know that you do other stuff like with stones and jewelry and stuff like that,
Mhm.
which is great. I commend you on that. Is there ever a thought that may come to your mind that, because that you were in the military and because of the fact that you are, around war and you're around all that angst and all that, have you ever thought about maybe going to certain places like battlefields or whatever and actually try to help some of these soldiers or whatnot to, if they haven't crossed over or whatnot?
Yeah, so a lot of the different places, even training areas, because remember, like Grafenwehr, for those that don't know, that's a known training location.
Hmm.
So whenever there are any areas or even just um, like walking through Gettysburg, and just
Yeah,
the the energy that's there,
that's where my mind is at, is Gettysburg.
yeah, is when the spirits, if they want help, I'm more than happy to help them.
Right.
I think the hardest part for me is, how it's like as a parent too, so I'm
Right.
military where I took care of people and I'm a parent and I see this spirit that I'm like, "You're not crossed over. You need help." And they're like, "No, I don't." "Yes, you do." "No, I don't." "Yes, like playing this game. "Oh, wait, my bad. Like this is
Right.
okay. There's
Right.
no reason for you to be forced to go anywhere when you're
Right.
ready." Yeah.
Right. Right. And I was trying to do that. And I'm still trying to get that documentary off the ground because I want to be able to go to these places, these battlefields, and all this because I have an ancestral tie to Gettysburg,
Mhm.
and I do know that there's a lot of these spirits and these soldiers and young kids that are stuck in this loop that are reliving this over and over again,
Yeah.
or they're just wandering and it's such the energy was, it was almost like an explosion of energy, you know what I mean, when all this
Mhm.
stuff happened and all this death, and it kind of like clouded or murk like what is it,
Like made it murky.
murky the water, you
Mhm.
know what I mean, and
Yeah.
so like these kids, because a lot of them were kids,
Mhm.
could not find that light or crossover or
Yeah.
whatnot, and I feel for them, and I
Yeah.
really have a desire to be able to create this documentary, to be able to enlist other people to help me do that. So when
Yeah.
it comes down to time like that, I would ask you, being military, I know that you would help me if whenever it
Oh,
comes
yeah.
time where I get the funding for this.
Yeah.
If anybody's out there that wants to fund a really cool documentary TV show about helping the spirits lost at Gettysburg, my email is on the bio. So um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I would totally enlist you to help me to do that
Yeah.
because I know that we both could, you know, kind of like tag team that problem and the spiritual problem in that way. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. I think it would
and
help a lot.
I know that you would be able to do it. I know that you'd be willing to do it.
Yeah.
And that is me assuming because of the fact that we're good friends, and I know that, that you would back that idea because we're a lot alike in that area.
Yeah.
We believe in helping the ones that need to be helped and on the spiritual side, and to help those go through that pain and that have gone through that pain and suffering, and to help them. And it kind of goes even like to soldiers today. You know what I mean? There's
Mhm.
so many soldiers that have seen some terrible things,
Yes.
and the support that the military needs, and especially emotional and spiritual needs,
Mhm.
just knowing that you being there and being able to help them, I know that you have in the past,
Yeah.
is important. And doing the podcasts like this and to reach out to people who are in the military, who have experienced, even not even paranormal, but even emotional distress that
Mhm.
they can talk to us. They can, get a hold of us. We'll be more than happy to talk to you. And um, especially with Elizabeth, being there and seeing and having seen, what war does and what all the stress of, the military, of all these, everything, the whole ball of wax, that there's a reason why you're in the military,
Yeah.
you know and I think that, joining the military, and I wanted to when I was younger, but I couldn't because of my health. But I really wanted to be able to serve my country, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. But if I could help people who are serving my country in some fashion, whether it be spiritual or whatnot, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And you're the same way, and I know that you're the same way, you know what I mean. But so talking a little bit again about, having the paranormal in the military.
Mhm.
Have you ever known of any um, upper military personnel talk about paranormal stuff?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, you'd be surprised. Well, maybe not. I maybe you wouldn't be, but
Yeah.
people would be surprised that it really goes like to the highest ranks.
Really?
Yeah, it's to listen to people and you're just like, oh, do I say something or do I not? And then all of a
Right.
sudden you hear them talking about something and you're going, oh, you too? You're
Right.
part of the club? Yeah.
Right. Right. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
talking like generals and
Yeah. Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of spiritual, elements around the military, and I think in the last some years, it's a slippery slope, and it's really
Mm,
gone up and down, up and down. I think that right now, I think it's going to be way better than it ever was, but I think it's going to be where the spiritual side of it, I think that that's going to start to heal. You know what I mean? And I think that you've already noticed that a little bit now.
mm,
So, um, with even having, more people enlist and more people, you know um, experiencing things in, like in the paranormal and this and that, it's kind of like when these young kids enlist, and I don't think that they knew what they got themselves into, because if the paranormal's out there,
yeah.
it's really going to be in there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think that that's kind of cool. I wanted to talk about that because I was always curious. I was always curious what the level of paranormal activity and the connection with the military, and you know all
Yeah.
that. And you've kind of just basically solidified that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting too, because we have, just like everyone else, because, people have their attachments or their loved ones that they've lost even before
Hmm.
they've come in. And
Hmm.
I've had soldiers that they come to me and, their brother is with them.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's just, hey, why am I seeing this? Oh my gosh. So the fact that they're there and they're in the military to come across our path to that
Hmm.
person to help
Hmm.
heal from that tragedy that they've suffered as a civilian,
Right, right,
like, I think just everything happens for a reason.
right. Do you see that more so?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's something. I mean, really. I mean, gosh. Even being in training, I'm
Mhm.
sure that you have seen some things in like your training days, and
Yeah,
even just, before you even realized, your gifts and who you were. I'm sure that you experienced that. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like it's like spiritual boot camp.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you go through it, and you happen to be in the military.
yeah,
But I would love to be able to do more shows on the military. I'd love to hear more stories and more even inspirational stories.
yeah,
You hear of the ones from like World War II where, like a soldier's buddy had passed away, but then came to him and helped him and saved him from, this or that and whatever, because those stories are everywhere.
Yeah.
Then
Yep.
they're inspirational stories, and
Yep.
so yeah, I would really like to hear other soldiers, and especially even elderly soldiers,
Mhm.
that were in World War II or even Vietnam or whatever. I would love to hear some of those stories. So if you want to, tell me any of those stories or my audience or whatever, like I said, my email is on my bio, so hit me up, let me know.
That'd be a really cool compilation of, like,
That
getting
would
every
be,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be totally awesome. Yeah, just because I find it fascinating,
Mhm.
and like I said, I have family in the military, and I know quite a few different people that are in the military. My nephew is in the military, in the Marines. My daughter is in the Navy. I mean, so we come from a long line of military people
Yeah.
of my ancestral line that goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, that's
You know what I
awesome.
mean? Yeah,
So cool.
yeah. We actually have, not too far from where I live, probably about, I don't know, 25 minutes from my house. There is a small town called Rochester in Wisconsin, and it's an old town, but it's got a cemetery that's a Revolutionary War cemetery.
Wow.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go there and check it out. I just haven't had time to venture. I drive by it every once in a while when I'm out that way, because it's a beautiful small cemetery, and I love cemeteries, So, but yeah, it's just one of those things where talking about the military and the paranormal and so give us one more really good story that you want to tell that would my listeners would really enjoy.
Oh, put me on the spot.
Of course.
Um, Jeez, I don't know. I just silence, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't know if I have, like, anything for me that's okay, so I guess the one, um, was probably my first oh, yeah, okay. I'm being shown this picture of, "Tell this one." Okay. Um,
That sounds cool. It would.
yeah. So I think it was, like, the first time that I could say that I accidentally channeled and didn't realize that I was channeling.
Mhm.
Uh, I was on an Air Force base, and we were in a hangar, and,
Mhm.
like a, um, airplane hangar,
Mhm.
and it was with my team, or the team that I was with in San Antonio, and we're in this hangar, and I remember, like, all of these emotions coming over me, and then my friend who she's also a medium, and
Mhm.
she was with us at the time, I started hearing and, like, no it was from what I remember, because remember how you said, like, "Okay, I was beside myself?"
Mhm.
So I felt like I was watching myself do this
Yep.
stuff,
Yep. Yep.
and so much so that it scared them to where she, like, said, "Okay, Liz, we're going outside," you know?
You're right. Right.
And so what it was a nurse that was there, and she felt and this nurse was stuck
Mhm.
in the emergency feeling of a crash,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and I don't remember much of it. I just remember that this specific I didn't know anything about the crash that had happened until after
Mhm.
I had gone through all of this and had been taken out, and then, of course, I was just exhausted and couldn't figure out what had
Right.
happened, and my
Right.
friend was like, "Your face started to change, your voice changed." I was telling this story to them that I to this day, like, the only thing they would tell me is that I was freaking out thinking I had to help people.
Hmm.
Um, Take me out, and I'm looking around like, What's happening?" So it turned out it was from a crash that had happened there where multiple people had died, and it was just like, how do you explain something like that,
So
right?
how old was that story? I mean, how old was the event?
Um, the event from if I remember right, it was like 20 or 30 years old.
Okay.
'Cause this was a long this was probably oh gosh, I'm gonna date myself. This was this was probably 2000 and I wanna say, like, probably 2007, 8-ish or so.
So
So I'd
you're
have
talking so you're talking probably about in the 60s, you mean? Or
I want I
70s?
wanna say it's 70s. I'd have to go back and look because 'cause it's been long enough to where my
Right.
memories.
So you found out some information. Do you remember
Mhm.
the information of what you found out?
No, I think what it was, she was literally because I can almost see her, she looked like she was wearing, of course, the white with the
Right.
I'm gonna say probably
I
70s.
could I
I
could
just
yeah, I could
yeah,
see it. I could see it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I remember just
She was a nurse.
her she was a nurse. Mhm.
She's got that thing on top. Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly,
I got you.
yeah.
I got you. I got you. I can see it.
Yeah, and she was just in
This save
this
mode.
this save mode. It's like she never went out of it, and I just remember going, "Okay, well, how do I help this person?"
Right, right.
And at the time, I was told, you can't really help them. It's them just wanting people to know, like, that this had happened. This is what they were going through."
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's the case now because 'cause I've learned so much since then,
Right.
but now it's just kinda like, how do I tell that spirit if it's not residual and just her going through the motions,
Mhm.
but how do I tell that, like, it's okay, like, these people are okay now, okay by, by the fact that they're no longer
Right.
there and you don't have to
This
constantly save.
right. It sounds like that's like a half loop. Like
Mhm.
it's but it's a loop that she chooses to go to
Yeah.
because she doesn't. It's comfort. It's
It's like what she knows, what she was.
familiarity.
Yeah,
Familiarity. Yeah. Yeah.
familiarity,
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
I just remember just the craziness. I had one where I was, like, stuck to a cement wall because I was seeing this image,
Mhm.
um, like, because I had laid down thinking, "Okay, this is how I relax myself enough," and I was literally, like, plastered to the cement
Mhm.
because I kept having this film play in my head,
Mhm.
and then come to find out, it was actually me having a really weird premonition, and the woman's spirit guide was saying, "Hey, warn them of this." My
Mhm.
medium friend who was with me was getting part of the information, and I was getting the other part of the information,
Right.
and
Right.
so she was able to save her daughter's life.
Oh wow.
So, it's just the crazy things that happened.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like in some aspects, and I tell people this too that that don't understand how guides work and this and that all the time. They think that they do, but they're not sure. I'm like they can guide us and they could tell us certain things, but they can't make us do anything,
Yep,
and they can't force us to make us to do anything. They
yep,
can't say you have to do this. You unless,
yeah,
unless the only time that that is ever okay is when you've already pre pre-wrote that there's some that spirit's going to save you because of fact that this is
yeah,
what's going to happen. This is your choices before here led you up to this point. You're going to need external help,
yeah,
and
yep,
so that's what I mean. But then it comes
yeah,
down to they're not going to sit there and they can't run your life for you. That's why we have free will.
right.
That's why we do what we want to do, and we make dumb choices and go stupid places and
Well, I
argue
think
with people and
that's one of the reasons I think a lot of, like, card readers and fortune tellers will say they'll always put that caveat in, "If things are going exactly like they're gonna go, and you
well,
don't make any
yeah,
different choices." Yeah,
right, and I do that too. I
yeah,
basically say the same thing. If I when I was doing readings, I'd be like, things can change, you
mhm,
know, and this is the path that I see that you're on now, and you know, and some people never change, and so they
mhm.
go through that, and it's like, oh my god, that actually happened. Well, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah,
I don't predict the future. I don't give you lottery numbers. It's like it's a big myth. Like, we don't do that. You know what I mean?
right,
We try to help people to guide them to make better choices with themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With the mother nature and spiritual and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We're trying to help people. We're not trying to pad our wallets. Some
Right.
are, but
Yeah.
not, not us.
Yeah. I think
I
I've
mean,
noticed my path has gone towards more healing, which
yeah.
is for me, it was kind of one of those realizations that I had where I was seeing these pictures and I couldn't figure it out, and it turned out it was to try to help with healing people in specific
Mm-hmm.
situations, and because I'm a physical medium and I was feeling this stuff and I was going, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" Like, "This
Mm-hmm.
is creepy, so scary.
Right.
Why do I
Yeah.
feel this way?"
Right.
And, of course, my teacher so Sky has, she spent, Sky Ray, you know her,
Oh, I'm good friends
um
with Sky Ray.
yeah,
Yeah.
so she was teaching me, and so she was like, "Okay, here's what you gotta do," and was teaching me what to do when I was feeling all of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like, "Oh, okay, so this is my thing." My thing is when the spirit or when that person feels that they're ready to heal or it's time for them to start that healing process, that I was getting these images
Mm-hmm.
and helping them, "Hey, here's your realization that it's okay, you're being validated and your feelings are validated," and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a whole big thing, you know. I mean, it's just doing what you want to do to help people, and there's so many different facets to it,
yeah,
you know. And that's all I've ever wanted to do since I was little was help people,
yeah,
you know. That's why I could always, have um, girlfriends in high school that, would I was a good listener, and they would tell me their whole life story and everything. But then they would never want to date me, and
yeah.
it's like so, which was the running joke. But and that's fine,
Yeah,
And my wife now is she our second date. She told me basically her whole life story, and she doesn't know why she did that to this day.
it's just part of your gift, you're a
That's
healer.
part, yeah, it's
Yeah,
part of it. Yeah, I'm a good
yeah,
listener, but
yeah.
yeah. So we are getting close to the time, and it's flew by.
Wow, that was fast.
That was fast. Um, I want to thank you for coming on because this has been long time in the making, and I appreciate you, sitting down with me and just chatting because these are conversations that we have all the time
Yeah,
that we
happy to
used to
share.
have. You know what I mean? And so yeah, this is just like a normal conversation for us.
Yeah,
Um, but I am enthusiastic about the whole finding more people that tell
mhm.
stories about the paranormal and the military because I know that there's some great inspirational
Oh, yeah,
stories out there,
100%.
and I
Yeah,
would love to hear them. So,
yeah.
but yeah, so everybody, you can find Elizabeth. Where can we find you?
So I'm on Facebook. If you search me on Facebook, just searching my name, first, last, you'll see my picture.
Okay,
Uh, it's pretty simple. Other than
yeah,
that, they'd have to reach out to you and ask to get a hold of me. I'm
right,
not
right.
on social media a lot. I just started watching TikTok and, like, I know that's a massive thing and maybe it'll go
Hmm.
away and maybe it won't, but
Right, right.
but I like, just literally in the last couple days, because 'cause I've been searching for where I'm supposed to go next and what classes I'm supposed to take next, and,
Okay,
um, that's where I was directed to be looking, so
okay, okay. All right, everybody. Like I said before, you could find me in this show, the Paranormal Saloon, under Studio 6 Media Productions. And you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I was on X, but I'm not on there anymore. Yeah, and you can find this episode uploaded under Studio 6 Media Productions wherever you get your podcasts, iHeartRadio, Apple, etc., etc. So, with that, I will say thank you again to Elizabeth,
thank you.
and it's been a great evening speaking with you. Thanks, everybody.